Today we're diving into one of the most essential tools. The overdrive pedal. So whether you're looking to add a touch of warmth or some gritty crunch or you're searing leads, an overdrive pedal can do all those things. And in this video, I'm going to give you kind of a quick lesson of how the overdrive works, and then demonstrate 3 killer tones that I use all the time, kind of my 3 kind of main ways that I use an overdrive pedal. So first of all, let's break down the differences between overdrive, distortion, and fuzz. So they're the 3 kind of main categories. And this is how you shape the tone of your guitar. So this is the basic clean tone I've got here. So first of all, you've got overdrive. An overdrive pedal, which would be something like a tube screamer, or for example, this is a Mesa Boogie version of a tube screamer. They're basically pedals that are designed to emulate the natural sound of a tube amp being pushed and a tube amp overdriving, pushing those tubes. And I mean, you can even go like, this is a great pedal here, it's a tube driver, like Dave Gilmour used these pedals. And I mean, this is the classic kind of overdrive because you're actually getting the overdrive from tubes inside the pedal. So basically what it does is it kind of warms up your sound, it adds this kind of grit to the sound and makes it sustain more. And the 2 kind of main categories of overdrive would be transparent overdrive or a colorful overdrive. So a transparent overdrive would be something like the JHS Morning Glory or like this tinny pedal. It's very transparent. And what it basically means is it doesn't change the characteristic of your guitar. So when you're playing your basic clean sound, turn on the overdrive, it just gives you more. It sounds a bit better. It sounds a bit richer and fuller and more harmonic, but it doesn't really change the sound of the guitar or the amp. It's just kind of adding more gain. And then you get more colorful overdrives, which will be like the tube driver or a tube screamer, where basically it changes the sound and it can emulate maybe the sound of a different kind of amp, or it just changes the EQ and the characteristics. So for example, the Ibanez TS9 is famous for its bluesy sound, and it adds this kind of mid-range bump to it, right? It gives you more of this mid-range sound, which is a crucial element in guitar tone. And then you got distortion pedals, and distortion pedals like take it up a notch, like this is a famous one, the Rat. Basically you're adding more gain and you're creating kind of more of this aggressive, kind of heavier sound. So distortion pedals take things up a notch. And then you've got fuzz pedals, which kind of push it into the extreme, intense, crazy fuzz sounds. And the result is this really saturated, raw, chaotic sound. I mean, basically, in some ways, it all kind of started... Well, it all started with tube distortion, where you had overdriven amps. And then in the 60s, you had the introduction of the fuzz pedal, which is the fuzz pedal is actually a very simple circuit. It's just transistors that are getting clipped. So you have germanium or silicon transistors inside these pedals, and that's why the sound is so intense. And then in the 70s, you had like things like these overdrives where the circuit is more complex. It has an op amp inside, so you can really shape the sound. So basically, overdrive gives you that smooth, natural tone, and distortion gives you more of that heavier sound, and then fuzz gives you that kind of Hendrixy, saturated, crazy, chaotic sound. So there's lots of cool different overdrive pedals you can get. But this is a great place to start. It's got a fantastic sound, and I'm going to kind of walk you through. There's a lot of different sounds you can get from this pedal. So the Morning Glory, it's based on the classic Marshall blues breaker circuit, which was originally designed to the idea was to kind of capture the tones of a vintage Marshall amp in a pedal. Okay, so let me walk you through 3 different types of sounds. So the first one, which I use a lot, is basically where you're just going to be using the pedal as a boost. So all you're going to do is essentially turn the pedal on, and then you're going to probably turn the tone up kind of past 12 o'clock, maybe to 2 or 3 o'clock here, kind of tune it to taste. And then you're going to set the volume so it kind of matches, or maybe a slight boost between it being on and off. Here's the pedal on. So it's just, it's about the same. And then you're going to set the drive pretty low. So it just adds a slight bit of warmth and sparkle to the sound. So the first thing when you have a sound like that, it just kind of beefs up the sound of the guitar. It gives you a little bit more sustain. It just kind of thickens things up. Also, one of the characteristics of overdrive is you're starting to slightly compress the sound And every time you increase the gain, you're compressing the sound more and more, because essentially you're literally clipping off the peaks of the waveforms. So that means that you can actually play more aggressively. So if you start with some basic rhythm, when you're playing like that, if you have a little bit of drive on there, it just kind of like thickens everything up and just kind of pulls it all together nicely. And you can dig in a bit more. It just kind of stands out a little bit more in the mix when you're using it like that. So, with a pedal like this, you could almost just leave it on all the time, just in that kind of setting where basically you've just got a little bit of drive there, and it just, you're not really hearing a lot of distortion at all. When you play really clean, this pedal's it responds very dynamically to your picking attack. So when you're playing softer, it's going to sound very clean, but it's going to kind of increase the harmonic content of the sound. But then when you really dig in, you start to kind of feel it break up a little bit more. So one of the interesting things with this particular pedal is, as you kind of increase the drive, it actually adds more brightness to the sound. So if you bring the drive all the way down and turn the volume up, you get this really nice kind of warm sound like this. It just gives you that real nice warmth. Whereas if you back the volume off and then start to bring the drive up, it starts to brighten the sound up as well. So it adds more harmonic richness up there. So just listen to the difference there. It compresses the sound and gives you more brightness in the mid-range. And then as you bring that gain up, when you dig in more with the pick, it's going to start to actually give you more distortion. And a nice kind of round, warm sound. So here's the sound of the guitar with the pedal off. And then here it is with it on, and I've got the drive about 12 o'clock. So you can see there's a lot more character coming out, and it just feels more alive and more dynamic. All right, so let's get into medium gain settings. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring the volume down, and I'm going to bring the drive up to about 2 o'clock, and then it starts to get a little bright sounding there, so I'm going to bring the tone back a little bit. So it's a great kind of crunch sound, right? It's great for rhythm. Now, one of the sounds that I use a lot when I'm working on records and recording is I'll get a sound like this with a fair amount of drive on it, because I want to get a nice amount of sparkle. And then oftentimes I'll actually play with my fingers or play pretty soft to keep things clean. But the overdrive just gives you this kind of sheen and this nice harmonic richness. So at this setting, the overdrive becomes more prominent. You're kind of hearing it. You're starting to hear some of the color. And it's kind of giving you this grit. It's giving you this sustain. But it's still transparent. You still hear the sound of the guitar. So it's just kind of making it come alive. And you're starting to get a little bit of that sustain, but you're still keeping that clarity. That's a great rhythm sound. Right, so let's get into the high gain settings. So what's cool about this pedal is you can just kind of flick up this toggle switch right here, and then it sends you into another mode, a higher gain mode. And then all of a sudden, this is where the pedal really shows it's got this kind of soaring fluid tone that's perfect for lead, right? And then if you flick it into the back position, it's going to just be a really great lead sound. So if you really want to get that kind of violin sound, the way to do that is just to put a lot of drive on there. And then usually what you'll do is you'll then adjust the EQ to pull some of the harsh upper frequencies out. So there's a couple of ways you can do that. This pedal actually has a little toggle on it where you can cut some of the high frequencies, or you can do it on there's a tone here you can use, or a lot of times what people will do is they'll use the tone on their guitar. So they'll shape the tone here. And just kind of finding that sweet spot where it's still singing and you still hear the articulation of the sound, but it's pulled out some of the harsh frequencies. So you can hear it's still really holding it together. It's got a nice tight sound, but you've got tons of sustain there. So at high gain settings, the Morning Glory becomes more aggressive. But it still has that clarity and articulation. Okay, so I'm just going to go back to kind of a standard setting. And then when you add a little bit of effects to the sound as well, adding a little bit of reverb and delay, all of a sudden it opens up a whole new world of how you can incorporate all this stuff together. So there you have it, 3 killer tones that you can achieve using any kind of overdrive, but particularly the JHS Morning Glory, going from subtle warmth to searing leads. So check it out. This is a great pedal, but just have fun and see if you can take any of your overdrives and try these different kind of sounds out, and you can really add a lot of color and character to your sound. So hope you enjoyed this video, and let me know what overdrive pedals you like and the sounds that you like in the comments. And give us a subscribe and a like and share this with your friends. And we'll see you next time.